Hey guys, this is MTK and this is going to be the complete Valorant tutorial. Before I begin, it is my humble request to everyone to watch this with an open mind and not think for a second that I am showing off or expressing how great I am, because I am not. If you do however feel this way, just know that whatever I say in this video is only to prove a point and for educational purposes only. So to prove my credibility, first of all let me introduce myself. I used to be a competitive COD 4 Pro Mod player from 2013 to 2014, and a CSGO player since 2014 to 2019. I have played many tournaments and LANs in Bangladesh for both of these games.
Yay! Working. Oh, shot! But it's all on MTK and solo. Oh! My God! MTK, you just saved your team.
And played Australian Esports League for CSGO in Australia and placed 5th.
Oh my god. MTK is a double on Kesset and Flood. Look at this man. He doesn't care. He's just... Yeah, he's going to be okay in the front. Inconsistent. He's in a bit of a trouble through the catwalk, but no problem. MTK connects a triple into the Presto. Quickly goes into a pistol. Feeling brave. Gets a 4K. And that is...
Recently, I also played a one-day short tournament where we placed 1st.
It's only 2 shots to find the headshot lineup. And oh my lord! Oh.
I'm currently not playing Valorant professionally by any means. I play casually for fun and for streaming. Now let's move on to our first topic, which is ranks. First and foremost, I would like to address the mental constraints that most players have regarding ranking up and why it is a huge issue. I solo queue, and usually my opponents are in a lobby. It is impossible for me to get out of my rank and climb up the ranks. After all these years of experience, I can tell you for a fact that although playing as a 5-man lobby is much easier, it is not impossible at all to solo queue. You will at least reach the 2nd or 3rd highest rank you deserve while solo queuing. Isn't it strange how a person who's stuck in Iron complains about not ranking up because of teammates, and when a player from Diamond hears this, he laughs it off? And he also says the same thing. He can't rank up because of his teammates. But what is the common factor between these two people? It is the fact that they both are hovering above the true ranks that they deserve. For example, if someone's true skill group is Diamond 2, and he has a streak of shitty teammates, you can see him drop to Diamond 1, or even Platinum 3. However, if this person is on a very lucky winning streak, he can reach Diamond 3 or even Immortal 1. However, the fact remains the same. If you pay attention, even when this person drops to Platinum 3, you will see him quickly rank back up to Diamond 2 or somewhere around that level. If this person goes to Immortal 1, you can see him quickly drop to Diamond 2 again. So what does this show us? This shows us that regardless of how lucky or unlucky your games are, you will definitely hover around the true rank you deserve. If you have watched my streams and videos, I only play solo queue on my main account just to prove this point to people. My main account is now Immortal 3, close to Radiant, and my alternate is Immortal 2. Everyone used to say the same thing about CSGO back in the day, but I solo queued 2 of my accounts to Supreme Master First Class and 1 of them to Global Elite, which is equivalent to Radiant. So I can assure you that it is 100% possible to solo queue and climb up the ranks. My ping is higher than you. This means I am clearly at a disadvantage, which is why I am stuck in such a lower rank than I deserve. There is a partial truth to this. If you play with a ping of anywhere below 60 ms, you won't be able to tell a difference at all. 60 to 80 ms is still very playable, although there is a very small disadvantage, probably 1%, to those who play below 60 ms. Now if your ping is above 100, you will definitely notice some kind of lag and be at a small disadvantage. You can solve this problem easily by calling up your internet service provider and ask them to give you a static, real, or gaming IP. All of these refer to the same thing, which means your IP address will be fixed and not changed. If your ISP refuses to give you a real IP, you can always change your internet service provider. If you already have a real IP and still face these issues, I would suggest you to directly plug in your internet connection via a LAN port to your computer or laptop instead of using Wi-Fi. Upgrading your router is also a good option. One more important thing is to check for packet loss, which is as important as ping. I don't have a decent computer or gears, therefore I am at a major disadvantage, which makes me inferior to my opponents. This is also partially true. However, I have personally seen many talented players with 60 frames per second and a laptop to reach the highest ranks in competitive games like CS and Valorant. It is hard, but definitely not impossible. Ideally, you would want 250 plus frames and a decent mouse to be able to keep up with the most geared up players. The rest of which, such as keyboards, mouse, etc., are good to have, but it won't put you at a major disadvantage. Now, many people have this assumption of the RGB factor being the only point of buying gears. It's just a method of showing off. It has no real value. Now, it is very important to remove this misconception, and to better help understand gears, I'm going to talk over some of the main gears very briefly so you can have a better understanding of it. So the mouse has quite a few interesting properties. It is going to be the most important gear for any competitive game you play. Aside from how many clickable buttons you have, for multiplayer online battle arena games like League of Legends or Dota, you would ideally want more buttons on your mouse. However, for an FPS game, it really doesn't matter how many extra buttons you have. Now, aside from the extra buttons a mouse has, and how many clicks it can withstand before the clicks wear out, the most important factor before buying a mouse is how much DPI it can go up to. Now, normally most professional players use around 400 to 800 DPI, with just a few pros using 1600. If a mouse is capable of reaching a very high DPI, it just means that the sensor on the mouse is probably more modern than its competitors. Now, moving on to keyboards. The only thing you really need to look at is the type of keyboard you're buying. Now, there are primarily two types of keyboards. One of them is the membrane and the other one is called the mechanical. Ideally, we would want to play with a mechanical keyboard because it helps a lot more with movements and registering fast clicks. Now, this is a perfect example of knowing before you buy a product, even if it's from a reputed brand. For example, the Razer Deathstalker, it's a great keyboard, but it's not mechanical. It's a membrane keyboard. However, a Razer Black Widow is a mechanical keyboard. So if you're really into FPS games, I would highly recommend buying a mechanical switch keyboard. Now, mechanical switches have their different variants as well. These are categorized by different colors, such as Cherry MX Red, Cherry MX Black, Blue, etc. Now, what these different colors refer to is basically the amount of force required from your fingers to register a click. So for example, a Cherry MX Red keyboard will need a lot less force required to register a click compared to a black switch keyboard. Personally, I've always used a Cherry MX Red. Next up is headphones. Although this is a very important gear, there's really not much to look into before buying headphones. The main things you'd want is to have 7.1 surround sound, active noise cancellation, a decent microphone built in, and to make sure that it is very comfortable so that you can play for long hours without the need to take them off. Now, last but not least, we have monitors. Now, I consider this as a gear and not a part of a PC component for now. It's because when you're going to be playing tournaments and attending LANs, this is something that you most likely will be carrying, just like your keyboard and mousepad. So if you've been involved in any competitive games before, I'm sure you have heard of higher refresh rates. If you have a random monitor lying at home, it is most likely 60 Hz or 75 Hz. Now, there are other variants to this as well. You can go up to 144 Hz, 240 Hz, and recently 360 Hz is being released as well. Now, what does this refer to? Basically, if you're using a 60 Hz monitor, your monitor can only output 60 frames in 1 second to your eye as you play. Even if you're playing at 250 frames, your monitor is not going to be able to keep up, and therefore it will only be showing you 60 frames in a second. Now, you won't be able to tell the difference between higher refresh rates unless you have used one. But if you've ever used a 144Hz monitor, you can really tell the difference within a second. So the similar rules apply. When using a 144Hz monitor, you're getting 144 frames in a second presented to you by your monitor. Same goes for 240Hz, showing you 240 frames, and 360Hz showing you 360 frames in a second. So what is my opinion on this? My opinion is, if you're switching from 60Hz to 75Hz, you will barely notice a difference. However, if you move from 75 to 144Hz, the difference is night and day. Once you switch to 144, you literally cannot go back to using 75Hz ever again. It just feels very sloppy. Moving up, if you're switching from 144 to 240Hz, you won't be able to notice a difference again. I have personally never used a 360Hz monitor, so I wouldn't be able to tell if there's a noticeable difference there or not, but I'm assuming the difference is very negligible compared to 75 to 144. Now, a monitor has one more important feature, which is of course the resolution. Now I'm sure many of you already know what this is. So a high resolution monitor is going to give you a better and clearer image of what you're seeing. However, this takes a toll on your PC, and you will most likely lose frames in exchange of the high resolution. Ideally, professional players always crank down their resolution and go for the highest frames and the highest hertz. So if you're planning to go pro in Valorant, instead of wasting all your money buying a 4K monitor, buy a 1080p monitor at 144Hz or 240Hz. Other features such as HDR, which refers to the dynamic range of colors, and whether your monitor has a delay of 1 millisecond, 4 milliseconds, or 5 milliseconds. Personally, I don't think these characteristics matter as much as the ones I've mentioned before. Now I'm going to go over mouse pads very quickly. There are two main types of mouse pads. One type is speed and the other is control. So control type mouse pads have a lot more friction, and it needs a bit more effort to move your mouse around. This is good for precise aiming and people who play with a high sense. Speed, on the other hand, is good for people who use a sniper rifle, such as an operator. Personally, I use a speed mousepad, but I used to have a control one back in the day. The size also matters. You should ideally get a larger mousepad, but small enough to fit properly on your desk. There are too many smurfs and hackers in my opponent team. Every legit player that you look up to have faced them too. They have reached the rank they are in by facing them and beating or losing against them time after time. It doesn't matter, as long as you are consistently performing or outperforming in your skill group. These one or two unfortunate games should not affect your overall progress. My teammates are extremely bad. They don't even use the mic. They don't listen to what I say. They're throwing, and they're just outright toxic. As I said before, the players you look up to have faced them too. Pro tip: when you know for a fact that you are definitely going to lose a game, don't give up immediately, but mute your teammates and try to get as many rounds and kills as possible. Aim to get 8 or 10 rounds before losing so that your rating decreases slightly. When you are at a winnable game, don't attempt to knife your opponents and force buy every round to end the game quick. Play it normally and win with the biggest round difference so that your rating increases greatly. So in a sense, we want to lose less elo on a loss, but gain huge elo on a win. This is a super easy tactic to rank up very quickly. Now, why did I talk about all this? It's because all this playing victim is essentially saying the same thing. I'm stuck in a rank which I feel like I don't deserve, and it's not my fault at all. I have accepted the fact that I am not ranking up, and I am comforting myself by blaming others and circumstances which are beyond my control. However, this does not change the fact that you are still indeed stuck in your rank. When a person checks to see your rank, they will never say, it's because he plays on a laptop. It's because he solo queues. It's because he has a lot of talent, just not the right opportunities. All they will say is, he's in a shit rank, therefore he's a shit player. So first of all, accept your rank and don't make any excuses. Know for a fact that you have to improve and work on improving. I hope that didn't sound too hard, but it was necessary to remove some of the mental constraints many of you may have. And this is exactly what this video is about. Helping you improve. And maybe to help you notice some of the flaws you may have which may be holding you back from reaching your full potential. Note, your rank does not define who you are as a player. It does not dictate your hidden potential. If you truly believe you have the potential in you, do not give up. Hopefully after this video, you will actively work on improving and reach those highest ranks very quickly. Now I'm going to rush through a small note. So for any rank between Iron to Diamond 3, your kills matter, your round difference matters, and the number of up airs you get matters for ranking up. If you're in any rank between Immortal 1 to Immortal 3, as of this act, which is Act 3, your kills don't matter at all. So even if you have 0 kills and someone on your team drops a 40 bomb, you guys will most likely earn the same amount of elo. The difference in rounds, however, matters a lot, and the number of up arrows you get matters for ranking up. Now, if you're trying to climb to Radiant from Immortal 3, your kills don't matter, your round difference matters, and the number of up airs you get matters, but there's a catch. The catch is, Valorant's website itself specifies that they have an allocated number of Radiant players per region. So this leads me to believe that in order to become Radiant, you have to beat the elo of the lowest elo Radiant player in your region. So let's talk about aim. To be honest, I don't warm up my aim anymore, but back when I used to play CSGO for a team, I used to kill at least 500 bots every day on a workshop map called Aimbot. Now I know many Valorant players do not play CSGO and do not wish to, so there are other methods of improving your aim. In fact, these new methods are even better than what we used to have. First and foremost, in my opinion, it's fine to move your arm while you aim, but when you're engaging in a fight, try to fixate your wrist and aim with your wrist. It makes your aim way more precise. It doesn't matter what sense you have. You should always want to aim with your wrist. Flick with your arm, aim with your wrist. Now look, as funny as it may sound, we all have a keyboard and a mouse. Even professional players do. So if they can move their mouse so quick and have snappy aim, what is holding you back? Why do you have to aim so sloppy and so slow? Even if you have horrible aim, just try to be really snappy. Just try to move your mouse a lot more so you're always ready to take the fight. Now when you spend thousands of hours playing a specific game, which requires a lot of mechanical energy, you start to realize that it's easier to flick your mouse down than flicking your mouse up. Now why is that? It's because the wire in your mouse gives you some sort of resistance when you move it up compared to when you move it down. So to eliminate this force and to have even more precise and consistent aim, you can always go for a mouse bungee. Now mouse bungees are inexpensive, but if you still don't want to invest money on a bungee, you can use anything you want. Any kind of box or item which will hold your wire upwards will ensure that your mouse has the same amount of resistance, moving it upwards, downwards, left or right in any direction. So a good way to develop aim is to go in the in-game practice range and with a Phantom or Vandal, try spraying and killing your opponents. Try to have the first bullet land on the head, and don't be afraid to flick faster than your natural reaction time. See, this is not a competitive game. We don't mind missing shots, so don't be afraid if you miss a lot of shots. What we want to basically do is, we want to normalize these extremely fast flicks and kind of develop this natural habit of flicking really fast but still killing the enemy. Next up, you can go for the easier mode and aim with a sheriff. Try to land every single shot as a headshot. Make sure you start off slow and then gradually speed up. Both of these should take you not more than 10 minutes combined. Next up, we have the most effective way and the fastest way to develop your aim and improve. So if you don't already have a Steam account, I would recommend downloading Steam, creating an account, and then searching for AimLab on the store. The game is free, and you'd have to register in-game as well. So after you're done registering, just log into AimLab. Just keep on hitting next or skip, and just somehow try to get in-game, because we're going to change up the settings a bit. So once you're in-game, head over to Options, go to Controls, make sure your game profile is Valorant, and set the sensitivity exactly as it is in-game in Valorant. This will ensure that you have the same sensitivity in both AimLab and Valorant. Because if you're warming up in a different sense, it really doesn't make sense, pun intended. Now just exit whatever game mode it automatically takes you into and go into the main menu. Look for Workshop, click on Workshop, and then search for Valorant Training. Now all of these training maps are pretty good. Some of the maps have a spelling error, but I'm sure you can find a good map to practice on. And then each of these exercises are like 10 to 15 minutes. Mind you, these are very, very draining to the eye, and even I can't complete a full map in a single session. My eyes hurt a lot. But if you can finish one of these maps in one single go, hats off to you, bro. So last but not least, we have a very important topic to go over. This is called crosshair placement. Now this is a big factor which plays a role in differentiating between a bad player, a good player, and a great player. You see, I wouldn't call a player a bad player, he's just inexperienced. Now these inexperienced players tend to aim at the ground and are not really prepared to take the fight. What do I mean by prepared to take the fight? What I mean is, when an enemy engages this player is not ready to hit that instant headshot. This player repeatedly readjusts his aim, which makes it very unlikely that he would win most of his aim duels. Now, a good player would be prepared to take a fight at any angle. He's going to lock into corners of every single angle he checks, no matter where he goes. This player aims tightly on corners so that if an enemy is hiding, he can always pre-fire, or fire so quick the enemy wouldn't be able to react. However, you can take this to the next level. If you aim so tightly, the only disadvantage is, if your opponent decides to wide swing, that's when you really have to flick your mouse, which makes it less likely that you're gonna land the kill before your opponent. See, he knows when he's gonna swing, but you don't know when he's gonna swing, especially when he's hiding in a corner. So what you can do is, place your crosshair a bit further from each corner, so you're prepared to take the fight, regardless whether he's hiding in the corner or he's swinging you. Make sure your crosshair is somewhere in the middle, so that in either cases, you have a higher chance of killing your opponent. This is essential, especially in defense when you're holding an angle. For example, if you're in Haven and watching C long, you know there's only one way they can come from, considering you have a player watching Garage. If you hold an angle so tight, you're most likely to die, or you can get one kill and then get traded off instantly. Because when an enemy comes, you won't react so fast and land that instant headshot. What you will do is, you're gonna readjust your aim, move it to the right, and then hope that it lands on the head. However, if you aim a little to the right, then the enemy is more likely to swing, or maybe run into sight. Your first bullet will more than likely land the headshot, and you'll have more than enough time to kill the second player as well, and probably many more players behind them. This is really essential if you really want to land those insta headshots. Now we are going to go over a fundamental mechanical skill known as jiggle peeking. Now I'd like to break this up into 3 parts: sidestepping, side peeking, and wide peeking. So first of all, we have sidestepping. When do we sidestep? We sidestep when we feel like there's an opper holding an angle, and we are about to peek that angle. We also sidestep to bait out information, even if an enemy is holding a rifle at that angle. Usually when he sees a small portion of your body, he'll most likely start reacting and firing. That's when you know there's someone watching the angle you're about to peek. This ensures that you don't swing into a trap and get insta one-tapped. When we sidestep, we want to show as less of our body as possible. When we do this, from your perspective, it may look like your body is not being exposed at all. However, this is completely fine. You will not be able to see the enemy when you sidestep. Note, it is faster to sidestep, and I would highly recommend to sidestep only using a knife. You should not be sidestepping with anything but a knife or maybe a pistol. We also sidestep sometimes to misguide the enemy's crosshair. So if the enemy is peeking somewhere else and he sees me sidestep, he will most likely aim at the angle that I peeked from. See, this creates space for my teammates to attack from another side. Even if I don't have teammates who are listening to me, or I don't have teammates who are actively going to attack when I distract the opponent, sidestepping will take you a long way, and you'll realize this as I gradually cover the other portions of this segment. This method of misdirecting your enemy is also known as bait shotting. Now I want to show you a clip where we use this method during the grand finals of a tournament. As you can see, it's a 3 versus 1 in favor of us, but instead of taking those aim duels, we're playing it safe. However, in a situation like play it too safe and you're hiding in a corner, the enemy is just going to come and check every angle and kill you one by one. So it's good to keep them busy, it's good to keep them engaged. And so you can see from truck, I'm sidestepping and just bait shotting a little bit. Even though my bullets hit him, I don't really care if I hit my opponent or not, because my main goal is to show him that, hey, I'm here in truck, please aim at truck, I'm engaging you and I'm fighting you. You cannot cross to this portion of the map without killing me. Whereas just after I shot a few bullets, I quickly changed up my position and I went into U-Haul.
Come up huge for for a team. It's the only angle.
You can see my
that
teammates doing the
Something
same
Wong
thing.
can't really watch right now. One kill. That's already good. It's great though.
Oh, trying as best as she might, Fudzara, and someone baits out that shot but can't.
Next up, we have side peeking. When do we side peek? We side peek when we want to know the exact location of the enemy. So before peeking around a corner, we are almost certain that there's an enemy there. However, we do not want to engage in a fight immediately after peeking because we don't know their exact location, whereas they could be placing their crosshair exactly at the corner where I'm peeking from. So we side peek so that we can pre-aim, place our crosshair on their head through the wall so that we can better prepare ourselves to land that instant headshot. We also side peek to trigger the enemy to lock onto the corner. See, even if an enemy is looking somewhere else and you side peek, he's going to aim at the corner that you just peeked from. Now at first thought, you may think this is dangerous. I don't want my enemy to be aiming at me. However, you will know in the next step why this is important. We basically do this to make space for us to swing. In order to do this, more of our body is exposed when compared to sidestepping. Now onto the final stage of this segment, we have wide peeking. This is the part where we do want to engage with the enemy. At this point, you should have the enemy's crosshair placed on the corner that you were peeking from. Basically now what we want to do is, we want to swing wide. We want to run past the corner as wide as we can, basically making sure that if the enemy is to kill us, he has to flick his mouse. We do not want to start shooting before we stop. You should always do this when you come to a complete stop. This is a big misconception. See, the running headshots that we see, from our perspective when our enemy lands them, they're not actually running. They actually come to a complete stop and then they shoot. With practice, this method is going to be so fast that it is going to look like you're hitting headshots while you're running. Whereas in reality, you're coming to a complete stop, you're removing any kind of counter-strafing recoil, and since you already have your crosshair placed on the enemy's head from the previous step, your first bullet will more than likely hit the headshot. If not, just spray down a little bit. Your crosshair may be 5 or 10% here or there, but that shouldn't be the problem at all. You have a higher chance of killing your enemy. Last but not least, you have to sidestep with a light item like your knife or pistol. You can side peek with your knife or pistol, or you can side peek with a gun as well. But when you wide peek, you have to have your gun out before you swing. So when you're done sidestepping, when you're done side peeking, and when you're ready to engage with the enemy and swing, you should have your gun out before you run from the corner. This ensures that when you're ready to shoot the enemy and you already have your crosshair placed on his head, you don't lose any time switching to your gun before you start shooting. So to summarize, we sidestep by exposing very little of our body and be aware of our enemy's position. We then expose a little more of our body so that we can see the enemy and place our crosshair on their head through the wall. Then finally, we wide peek and swing away from the corner so that we can catch the enemy off guard. And since our crosshair is already placed on their head, it's more than likely that we're gonna win the aim duel and not the opponent. This is what it looks like from the enemy's point of view. So just to follow up, I'm going to go over a very short segment regarding instant headshots. So have you ever wondered how a player hits running headshots and why a player from a high rank is so hard to kill? This is mostly because of their movement, the way they move, the speed of their movement, stutter stepping, strafing and counter strafing, etc. I'm going to go over all of these within a very short time. What is strafing? Strafing is when you use the time you spend in the air to your advantage. Usually, there is a change in velocity as you move swiftly through the air. Every game has a different strafing mechanic, and all I can say is it only improves the more you play the game. It is a vital aspect of your movement. For every strafe, there is a counter-strafe. Counter-strafe is the exact opposite movement of the strafing movement that you have created. The general consensus across most games is to completely let go of your W and S keys and move with only A and D, left and right. However, when you strafe using A and D, you actually want to move forward, but you move forward by a series of left and right strafes, instead of just going forward using your W key. Now, why is strafing important? Strafing is important because sometimes you can escape dangerous situations very quickly. You can also change your positions really fast. It also looks cool, feels cool, and most importantly, it makes it harder for your enemies to kill you. So this is a third-person view of me strafing. Notice my fingers. I am not pressing W at all. I only press W when I fail a B hop and I want to initiate going forward, and then I completely let go of W and S again. Notice the movement of my mouse. I do not move it too fast nor too slow, just the right amount. There is no correct or incorrect way of strafing, it just depends on how you feel. Now that we're done with the hard part, let's move on and use this same concept to a vital aspect of our mechanical skills. We want to land instant headshots. So as I said in counter-strafing, for every strafe there is a counter-strafe. Similarly, for every movement, there is a counteracting movement which stops it. For example, when you press W to move forward, which button do you press to stop? You press S. If you press W and A, which buttons do you press to instantly come to a stop? You press S and D. Now I hope you are all on the same page now. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because it is essential to know the fastest ways to come to a complete stop. Because if we don't come to a complete stop, our first bullet would not land on the head. It doesn't matter if our crosshair was placed perfectly on their heads. Sometimes we miss a shot even though our aim was perfect, and we blame the hitbox. Whereas we don't take into account that we were in the middle of a movement and we did not come to a complete stop. Now you have to keep in mind that the more buttons you involve in your movement, the more complicated it's gonna be to stop. So instead of pressing W and A and stopping with S and D, why don't we just let go of our W and S keys, just like we did in strafing? Why don't we just peek using A and D? For example, let's completely ignore the W and S keys. Let's peek with the button A and come to a complete stop pressing button D. We will only start shooting when we come to a complete stop. If you don't come to a complete stop, then your first bullet will not land on the head. Now you should keep in mind that the heavier the gun, the harder it is to come to a complete stop, and the longer it takes. So in theory, with a pistol, you don't actually have to completely stop before shooting. You can actually press A, and then as you press D, you can left click your mouse and start shooting. We call this stutter stepping, and your bullets will still be accurate. However, with a rifle like a Vandal or a Phantom, you should give it some time before you start shooting. Here are some clips of me showing you why this is so important. Don't get me wrong, I do use all of my keys to move. But when I know that I'm going to engage an enemy, I instantly let go of 2 of my keys, and I only move with preferably A and D.
She's there, she's there!
One enemy remaining.
She's on side, she's on side!
Target down. Careful now. No charges left.
Nowhere to run! One enemy remaining.
Now this is my favorite part of the video. So how do you counter people who land instant headshots? When you reach a certain rank, you realize that some enemies are just so fast, you just can't kill them before they peek and kill you. They check every single corner, and there is practically nowhere you can hide. In simple words, they naturally place their crosshair on every angle the enemies could be in. This is where off angles come to play. What is an off angle? An off angle is an angle where the enemy is less likely to aim. It is an angle where the enemy does not naturally place his crosshair. When they peek you, they're gonna be off guard, and by the time they readjust their crosshair, you'll have ample time to kill them. Now instead of wasting any more time, I'm going to show you some of my personal favorite off angles. I hope you can use some of these off angles in your own games, and I hope it helps you. You can create off angles by yourself. Now I'm going to show you just a few clips where I create situational off angles and how it helps me win rounds versus Immortals and Radiants.
One enemy remaining.
Going up.
Now in this situation, I heard Omen run to stairs. I knew that there was only one place that Omen would come from, and it was stairs. So I tapped the bomb, and I made it look like I was either backside or I was onside on the spike. With my flame wall, I bought myself even more time to mask my real position, which was an off angle in the open. Now, imagine you're in their Omen's place. Would you have ever pre-fired or pre-aimed your crosshair on my head where I'm sitting down? No, you wouldn't, because this is an off angle. This is a very unnatural place to be in. However, this is how you should play versus high-ranked players. You should play the most unexpected spots. In fact, even if I didn't have a flame wall, I would have still had a higher chance of winning the round. This is because I have my crosshair placed on staircase. I know that Omen's gonna push staircase, and when I see him, I'm going to instantly start firing. However, as the Omen comes staircase, he has to see where I am. He will notice me to the left. He will adjust his crosshair to the left, and then he can start firing. This gives me a lot of time to kill my enemy before he kills me. Bomb drop.
One enemy remaining.
He's 30 HP.
Now I've gone over many concepts in the video. Now I'm going to play a clip from the grand finals of a small tournament, which we won. Note, the team which I played for, we haven't played as 5-man ever before this tournament. It was literally the first time we played as 5. But you can see some of these concepts are being used by all 5 of the players, even though we never spoke to each other about it. Pause the video after you watch the clip and see how many of those concepts you notice in those clips.
But can't quite fight it. Blow over will get that man advantage, claiming Shrey. But Hugh re-peeking nonetheless. Oh no, and eats the flash for that one. MTK will get the trade. But Zara with one of her own and another follow-up. It's down to a 2v3 now. As she's stuck back towards Lamp's side.
Spike planted.
Look, aggressive turret. This is why Killjoy is so good currently in the meta. You see a lot of NA pro teams picking up the turret, but angle.
Oh no, the angle was off. A little bit more far forward would have catched that MTK. But MTK is too strong. That is going to be a 4K from him.
And that range as well. The Spectre Ripple Control. Januka by herself is no stranger to being a headshot monster, but the Phantom at long range.
Oh no,
that
he's shot down. Oh no, he's stuck in a corner.
Look for one.
And they've won.
So you can pause the video here if you want. Alright, I'll explain it myself. So in showers, this guy killed my ult, and he made it look like he was exiting showers. However, my game sense tells me he in fact is still in showers, waiting for me to push. This is why I flash him, and instead of peeking from the corner that he's aiming on, I actually swing wide. See, if I did not swing, I would have been killed very easily. Even if he wasn't blind and I swung him, he would have to change his crosshair placement before starting to kill me. See, this is how I increase my chances of killing my opponent before he kills me. Next up, we have an instant headshot on the player watching truck. Now, from his perspective, it looks like I'm running and shooting, whereas in reality, I actually came to a complete stop before I started firing. Next up, my teammates are watching flank and U-haul, so it's my job to watch CT. So I play an off angle here, and the Killjoy places a turret. Unfortunately for him, the turret just barely misses me. And so he doesn't check my angle. But regardless, this angle is a great off angle to hold CT.
No, the angle was off.
And finally, I know the Reyna's playing U-haul, so I flash him out, and then again, I don't peek from the corner. I actually swing wide, and then I kill him. Even though he wasn't shooting me, it's still safe to not peek from the exact corner that I just flashed from. I want to swing wide. I want my chances to increase. In this clip, even though it's a 3v1, we are well aware that this player is more than capable of clutching it out. So instead of taking those aim duels, we are trying to bait shot. Like I said before, when we bait shot, We don't really aim to kill our opponent, but our goal is to make the enemy aim at us so that his crosshair is misdirected, which opens space for a teammate to swing and kill him, or even creates space for us to swing around a corner. So as you can see, the Sova is just blindly shooting at him while running. He knows good and well it's not gonna kill him. He's doing this so that this guy aims mid, because on his radar, he sees a teammate on short who is ready to peek. As soon as Sova's done misdirecting the enemy's crosshair, the Reyna peeks top mid. However, this player is quick enough to aim short and try and kill Reyna, so Reyna backs off again, and that's when I swing in mid. See, what all of this is doing is creating so much pressure and wasting time. This will greatly affect your opponent's aim in a negative way. Alrighty, so we've gone over so many concepts, so many ideas, but you must be thinking, what do you exactly do in your games that helps you rank up? Well, I'm going to show you exactly what I do with the agents that I play with, which helped me get my main ID to Immortal 3, close to Radiant, and my Smurf account to Immortal 2. So ideally, you should master 3 types of agents, 1 Duelist, 1 Smoke, and 1 Sentinel. In my case, my Duelist is Phoenix, Smoke is Brimstone, and my Sentinel is Cypher. So with a Phoenix, your first ability is your Flame Wall. Now you can make this straight, or you can even curve your Flame Wall. You do this by holding down left click and slowly moving your mouse. If you want a more advanced wall with a big curve, don't be afraid to completely flick your mouse to one side, and it's going to completely curve your Flame Wall. You also have 2 flashes, and it's quite impossible to dodge these flashes if you hit them correctly. It's not even possible to shoot it, so Phoenix's flashes are really dangerous. You also have a molly, which does a lot of damage really quick. You can heal yourself with your molly and your Flame Wall. Your Flame Wall heals you slowly compared to your molly. Now if you want to combine some of these abilities, you can put up your Flame Wall, flash through your wall, and then shoot the enemies. You won't get blind if you're on the other side of the wall. On bind, I usually play B-Long as Phoenix. I hold a flash out, and when I feel like there's an enemy close by, I flash and I peek. I save my second flash in case an enemy is too close, or if there are many enemies and I want to escape the situation. After I'm done fighting, I'm probably gonna fall back to side, just to play with the information. See, they'll think I'm close long, but actually I'm backside. This gives my teammates ample time to rotate. Playing inside of the tube and flashing on the sides is a great way to anchor side as well. Now when the enemies already know that I'm flashing B-Long, you'll notice that they'll not push B-Long. They're actually gonna wait for your flash. They're gonna hide back off B-Long and just watch the angle. So after a few rounds of successively flashing your opponents and killing them, what you can do is start going hookah. You can flash out of hookah, get 1 kill and fall back to side, and anchor it again. One more way of playing B-Long is, if you throw your Flame Wall up, your opponents are gonna be paranoid. They're gonna think you crossed and you're on the left side. After your Flame Wall's down, your enemies will come and check the left corner. When you feel like an enemy is close, flash the corner and peek normally. Switch it up as much as you can. I also like to ulti from hookah. I stand behind this box in hookah and then ult because in case someone's close hookah and he kills my ult, he won't be able to push my body and kill me as I spawn back. I always like to finish off my ulti with a molly. This is because I like map control. If I didn't have the ult, I probably wouldn't be able to extend this far into the map. So with my molly, I'm delaying the enemies even more. I also like to ulti from U-Haul. I use my ulti and then I go inside teleporter, even if I see some enemies on A short. I wouldn't want to engage with them, because I want to play for info. So I go close to the door. When the door opens, I just flash myself out, I kill an enemy and I try to always molly, just before my ult finishes. When I spawn back, the enemies are more than likely to push in the U-Haul to catch you off guard when you spawn back. So it's best if you flash first and then you run, or you engage with the enemy. This off angle at triple is also one of my favorite spots. I can watch a showers push, or anyone pushing A short and crossing the U-Haul with this angle. Note that Omen can teleport across and Jet can dash through without you being able to kill them. Another great off angle is in showers. When you hear the opponents taking the orb, you can swing and kill the opponents. You can also flash before you peek them. Another great off angle is this corner here, because they usually never check this corner. On attack, I almost always come here outside showers, and I peek showers from on top of this box. This is a great off angle because even if there's an upper, he won't be able to see you if you jump on top. If you think the opponent is saving, it's good if you molly this corner here, because usually there's an enemy close by, especially a Jet. Now if I'm close to having my ult, I'm gonna molly the corner so nobody pushes me, and I'm gonna grab the orb. If not, and if I have my molly, I like to molly in this corner outside showers. You can do this by lining yourself up in this corner and aiming towards this archway on top. Note that this will not molly on top of the box, but you can always wallbang it. Another great spot for mollying is if you're in A short, you can molly pocket. Just come into this corner and aim where the leaf meets with the wires. I like to flash before my ulti so that when I ult, I don't waste my time flashing. So I throw a flash and then I'm gonna ult out. I'm gonna try and get as much info as possible, not as many kills as possible. So I extend into U-Haul, maybe Molly somewhere, and then fall back. You can take U-Haul control very easily by using this flame wall to cut off every single angle to the right so that you and your teammates can easily push into U-Haul. You can also flash outside the wall as you run through. Another great place to ulti from is from showers. Now I ulti from behind this wall because if there's someone playing close showers, even if he kills my ult, he won't be able to push this far and kill me without me spawning and being ready to take the fight. Another one of my favorite spots for ulting is going B long, going up close, flashing and then ulting. And then using my second flash as I run into side. Even if an enemy is in elbow, I'm not going to chase him because I need to clear out side with my ult. I'm going to check backside, and even if I die, I can tell my enemies if there is anyone backside, or inside the tube, or in cubby. Now when I play Cypher, I like to place this trip and play elbow, and then I put a cage on top of the trip as well. This trip is a bit tricky and you have to crouch and aim it perfectly in order to land. If I hear players running B long, that's when I'm gonna initiate the cage. And then I place the camera here while I jump so that I can watch whole of B long as well as anyone jumping out from here. On buy rounds, some good B long trips are from these arches. It's gonna be pretty hard to notice and break even if the enemies see it. Some really good tripwires on hookah is a zigzag cross as well. Just aim just below this box, and then your other trip is gonna be diagonal as well, just on the opposite side. Anyone jumping out from hookah will get tripped and they'll just be hanging. You can kill them while they're hanging and they literally cannot control their recoil. Now if you want more simple trips, some good tripwires are alongside over here and near cubby, because this is where the opponents will usually check when they engage with the enemy and they won't stop for a second to break the tripwires. I like to place my camera in spots where the enemy has to look behind to break it. So even if they hear the camera being triggered, usually they don't look back to break it, and even if they do, they'll be at a big risk having enemies in front of them while breaking the camera behind them. The most common camera spot is to watch B long as well as side over here in this corner. However, do make sure that the camera is a bit rotated before you place it, because if you place it towards you, then it's not going to be able to watch B long. If you play A as a Cypher, a good tripwire is outside showers. Make sure the trip is as close to the wall as possible so that it's even harder for anyone coming from showers to break your trip. And one of my personal favorite tripwires is alongside stairs here, because first of all it's really hard to see, and second of all it's near impossible to break the trips or to ignore it. Enemy is going to get tripped over here even if you do it repeatedly. Like I said, I like to place my cameras from behind enemy lines, so this is a great spot. Another good tripwire is alongside the boxes here on side to prevent anyone from planting. On Haven, I like to play this off angle here with an AWP or with a rifle. If I engage with an enemy and I can't kill them, I usually hit a flash and then I change my position just to mess with their heads. Another great spot is here behind logs. If you crouch down, it's really hard to kill you. If you're stuck in platform, you can watch long from here and all they can see is a little bit of your head. But if you're really stuck in platform and the enemies are pushing C like crazy, what you can do is you can ignore a few angles. Just ignore all the players coming from long. Just watch the garage push and watch anyone crossing to backside. This is a great way to anchor and buy a lot of time for your teammates to rotate. If you play garage, it's good to molly the doors if you feel like an enemy is close by. I also like to play this off angle near door and occasionally flash myself out for one single pick and then I pull back. Another great off angle is on the other side here. If I play B, I usually just play backside. I flash one corner and I peek from the other. Now I usually play A, and I watch short, and I play this off angle in sewers. When an enemy pushes, he usually checks the cubby on the left, and so when you're peeking this, you'll usually see the enemy looking away from you and you can get a free kill. However, if there are many more players behind him, you have to flash and then peek, or go back to safety. On force buys or eco rounds, you can play a more close angle in sewers. If I play A long, I usually ask my teammate to help me push A long, so that I can watch both long and sewers, and my teammate can rotate off. A great way to do this is if you have a teammate who is playing breach, and he stuns the entire line along A long, you can easily cross over and push long. Now on attack, I usually come on top of this, and I watch the sewers push. I usually don't go long, and I usually just flash myself in sewers and push. If I go mid, I usually take garage control. I molly doors so that nobody pushes or peeks garage doors, and I flash myself in. Before crossing the site, I usually throw up a flame wall, so that me and my teammates can cross without having to check any angles on the right. Garage is also one of my favorite spots to ulti from, because I can clear out garage, as well as get some info on where the enemies could be in CT. Another great ulti spot is, if you can manage to push C long cubby, and you ult from there, you can clear out the entire site by yourself. Like I said before, I like to finish off my ult with a molly to delay the enemies even more. If you don't have an ulti and you want to push regardless, you can put up a flame wall to cut off any of the angles to the right, and you can flash yourself through the wall, and it's not gonna blind you or your teammate, but it's gonna blind anyone who's on the other side of the wall. As a Cypher, a basic tripwire is along this side of site, as well as long over here. For pistol rounds, you can set your camera up this default spot over here by going into heaven. Although you can watch all of sight and long, this is a very common spot and this camera will be broken very quickly. A better combination of tripwires would be in front of sewers like this, and across side. And you can cage long instead, so they think there's a tripwire in long, but there's not. One of my favorite camera spots is along the bushes over here, where you can watch the enemies push into side, and they won't be able to see the camera even if they hear it. They really have to look for the camera. If you're on a force buy or in an eco round, you can set up these defensive trips so that anyone pushing backside can get easily picked off. On B, there isn't really a tricky tripwire known to me. It's just default on both sides. And I like to put my camera behind enemy lines again. Another great camera spot would be in cubby, so that when they push into sight, they won't look back and check cubby again. If you play garage, you can put one trip on window and a default trip inside garage like this. Make sure you crouch to check whether the enemy can crouch under or jump over your trip or not. Best way to do this is to see if the trip directly lines with your head. If you're playing C side, an unusual tripwire would be on the boxes here. Make sure you aim for the cloth where there's a fold on the box, and it's going to catch anyone pushing the side to plant the bomb. Another odd trip is in long, when you aim inside these horns, and you'll have a vertical trap. I personally don't know a really good camera spot on C side, so I just put one behind him like this. On Ascent, if I play B, I usually play by the stairs, and if I feel like enemies are pushing, I'm gonna flash, get a few kills and fall back to side. This is a great off angle behind the box, because usually they can't see you as they cross lane, and by the time they jump out, they're gonna check backside. Another great off angle is in backside, around this corner. If you have your molly with you, you can also hit your molly on lane so that the enemies are stuck in the open, and your teammate from market can easily kill the opponents. A decent crossfire is playing logs with a teammate inside boat. If I play mid, I usually want to save up for an op, and then I watch the crossover here. Even if there's a smoke here, I would usually shoot 2 seconds after the smoke, and if you're lucky you can get a kill. Sometimes if there's an omen or a jet, they're gonna smoke mid and go on top of the box and peek from here, so it's good to be aware. If I have a rifle, I like to play close, in this off angle in this position. This is also a great spot to ult from, as you can flash link and then kill anyone who's waiting there, as well as give information for your teammates on B. Save your second flash so that you can flash mid and fall back to safety once you spawn back. An even better way to do this is if you curve your flame wall and then you ult, so if there's an enemy on top mid, he won't kill your ult. If I play short, I like to play this off angle here, where you can see the enemies, but the enemies will usually check the other side of short, and you can get a free kill from here. If there are multiple enemies pushing, you can always flash and peek. If I play A long, I usually flash and then I peek, get a kill, fall back to safety, and I play Gen. If the enemies are pushing A, I flash from Gen, and I just like to anchor from side, to buy time for my teammates to rotate. On pistol rounds, I usually play defensive backside. I flash one corner and I peek from the other. If you have your ult and you know it's an A push, you can always ult from hell, and instead of engaging with the enemy, buy as much time as you can. With a Cypher, I usually play B. A basic tripwire spot would be to hold off anyone pushing from B main. And I throw one more tripwire over here, and I put a cage so that they don't break the trips as they push. And when they get tripped, you can see them and wallbang through the wall. One of my favorite trips would be a cross sight over here, because when an enemy pushes this far, they're most likely not going to check for the trips. And one on boat as well for anyone trying to go into switch. A decent camera spot would be behind enemy lines over here. Jump and place your camera as high as you can. However, my favorite camera spot on B is over here in this corner. You can see anyone pushing into lane, anyone going stairs, or even logs. And it's very hard to spot this camera. The most basic camera, however, is to come up to this corner, aim over here until your camera becomes blue, and then jump and place. You can see anyone pushing from B main, and mark it as well. Another common camera is to watch B main with this deep camera over here. However, this camera gets broken really quickly. This camera is only good for that early info. As Cypher, ideally you shouldn't be playing mid, but this is a good camera spot in case you want to watch anyone who's pushing mid. On short, you can place your trips on this flower pot, and it's going to be very hard for your enemies to break the trip. You can put one more in garden. This is also a trip which is quite hard to break. If you play A side with the Cypher, these are my favorite trips. See, when they push A, they're gonna check for trips alongside the columns over here. But when they push, they either go right or left. And these trips are perfect to catch them off guard. However, if you want a more basic trip, you can trip the columns over here like this. If you're playing with an SMG against a full buy, or you only have a pistol, you might want to trip more deep in the side, so when they push in, they won't expect it, and you can get those close frags. Now there are some sick one-way cages over here. Stand on top of the second brick, which is a bit more lighter in shade. Aim below this line in the archway. Throw your cage. Same thing, second brick from the left-hand side. Aim at the bottom of the line of the archway. And once you trigger this cage, you can see them, but they won't be able to see you. You can see their feet and start spamming. This is what it looks like from their point of view. A sick camera spot over here would be in this corner over here. This is a very hard to spot camera, and your enemies most likely won't be able to break it. Another great camera spot for watching short is behind this plant over here. Make it a bit more harder for your enemies to spot the cam, but you can see everything. On split defense, I usually play by mail, get one kill and fall back. You can flash mid and peek. If you feel a lot of pressure on mid, you can always fall back and watch mail from rafters. This is a really OP spot. If they have heaven control, I usually come CT, and I watch anyone who drops down from hill through ropes. If I'm playing B side, I usually just jiggle this corner around here, and if I see an enemy, I'm gonna flash, and then I peek to get a kill. Some of my favorite off angles when I fall back is this one behind pillar, and this one in hell. If I play ropes, I play around this off angle here so that I can get a free kill on anyone who pushes stairs. And then when the enemies know that I'm in ropes, I'm going to fall back and watch ropes push from here. If I play A, I usually jiggle elbow, and if I see anyone crossing, I'm gonna flash. So now the enemies are thinking Phoenix is in elbow, whereas I'm going to play this off angle inside. As usual, I'm gonna flash one corner and peek from the other. A good off angle for pistol round is this one over here, where you can flash the enemies and get free kills. You can also flash and peek ramp as well. On attack, I usually hold this angle for a little bit before I push A, because if there's an upper, or if it's too quiet, someone is most likely going to peek this corner over here. When I push A, I usually molly ramp so that there's no one peeking when I clear outside. I always flash before I push into heaven, because there's too many angles to clear. If I push mid, I'm just gonna bait shot through this shelf here, so that if there's anyone watching male, he's going to be under a bit of pressure. I like to throw a molly behind box so that if there's anyone hiding there, he is forced to run out. Before pushing male, I always flash heaven. This is a great spot to ult from, because even when you spawn back, you can still watch mid as your enemies push B. And usually I just stay back, watch anyone who's rotating from ropes to B. If it's a B hit, I usually watch a B push, and then I molly the default angle there. I throw up my flame wall if we don't have a sage to wall off cross, and I flash twice through the wall, and I clear outside. You can also ult from B main, and it's good if you clear out as many angles as you can, not get as many kills as you can, because you have many teammates behind you, right? They can always trade. I flash first, then I ult, and then I clear out as many angles as I can so that I can give my teammates information as to where the enemies are. I'm not worried too much about getting kills. As a Cypher, I usually play B. I put a tripwire in male, but instead of putting a tripwire in front of stairs, put it further back so that it's harder for them to break the trip. I cage on top of this trip so that if the enemies are rushing, they won't be able to spot the trip. Another great tripwire spot is across the plant here, and although this is a very low trip and the enemies can easily jump across, usually what happens is the enemies don't stop to check because they're clearing out the angle on CT stairs. I like to cage these two spots on site to delay the enemies. The most default tripwire on B main is this one across the trash can, but as it is very common, if there's a Raze or Sova, they usually just shock dart or throw a grenade to break the trip. A better tripwire would be this one, which is a bit hard to set up. You have to crouch and aim perfectly, but once you get the hang of it, this is a really strong tripwire. They usually can't break this tripwire over here. Another great tripwire is across site over here, and I like to cage on top of it. One of my favorite camera spots is over here, on top of this tower over here. As you can see, I cannot place the camera any higher. However, you aim here and then you jump, you can put your camera a bit more higher. The most default camera spot is over here, from on top of rafters, where you can see the enemy's legs, and you can pin the enemy if they peek B main, and they won't be able to see the cam. You can also see male from here. However, this is a very default camera spot, and if you play against high ranks, even if you don't trigger the camera, they're gonna spam this and break the camera. On eco rounds, I like to place the camera behind enemy lines again, so that when they're close, I trigger the camera, they look at the camera, and that's when I peek and kill. On A, a really good tripwire is across the stairs here, where it's really hard to break the tripwire even if they spot it. They usually can't spot it anyway. The more default tripwires are across side, on both sides. I like to cage ramp, so that the enemies think there's a trip just inside my cage, whereas there's no trips on the cage. Like I said before, I like to put my cam behind enemy line, so I put it over here, so when they push into side, they don't wait to look back to break the cam. And even if they do, a teammate from screens or heaven is most likely going to kill them anyway. Sometimes I put one trip on site and one trip somewhere else. Instead, I put a cage on site. So what happens is, as they push into site, they have no information whether there's one of us in the corner of site or not. So as they push, they're gonna be paranoid. This puts a lot of pressure on the opponents. Thank you for taking the time to watch the video. Again, I don't mean to say I'm a great player, but since I promised that I'd make a video like this video literally covers every single thing I know about Valorant. I hope these tips help you a lot in your games, and I really look forward to see some feedback from you guys. I hope to see all of you ranking up very quickly very soon. Thank you all for watching.